The University of Manitoba campuses
are located on the original lands
of Anishinaabe,
Cree,
Ojibwe,
Dakota,
and Dene peoples,
and on the homeland of the Métis Nation.
We respect the treaties that were made on these territories.
We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past.
We dedicate ourselves to move forward
in partnership with Indigenous communities,
in the spirit of reconciliation
and collaboration.
The Outstanding Young Alumni Award recognizes graduates who are under the age of 35 and who have demonstrated significant contributions to their field of endeavor, their community, and the University of Manitoba.
My grandmother explained it to me. She said, "My girl, you're going to grow up to be a powerful woman, even more powerful than me." And that's a lesson that stuck with me throughout everything that I've done in my entire life.
At 31, Ashley Richard is now bringing truth to her grandmother's vision as a champion of Indigenous youth and a driver of positive change. As a student at the University of Manitoba, she learned the value of getting involved through her work with groups such as the University of Manitoba Indigenous Commerce students.
So if I had to describe Ashley in 3 words, driven, ambitious, and engaged.
She's worked for the Treaty Relations Commission of Manitoba, hosted dialogues with former TRC Commissioner Justice Murray Sinclair, co-founded an Indigenous comedy festival and Red Rising magazine, and volunteered as chair of the Winnipeg Foundation's Walking Together grants. Today, Ashley is leading the National Indigenous Hub for the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub.
The Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub is all about creating an inclusive innovation ecosystem for women entrepreneurs across Canada. And the National Indigenous Hub is responsible for ensuring that Indigenous women are a part of that inclusive innovation ecosystem.
She's really started a long overdue conversation, about innovation, about economic development, about entrepreneurship within the Indigenous community, and really kind of stepping into a space of Indigenous innovation, there's not a lot of people doing that right now. I think people recognize that the work she's going to be doing in the future, and it's pretty remarkable.
Ashley is also the youngest member of Red River College Polytechnic's Board of Directors.
Creating pathways and opportunities for Indigenous young people to partake or participate in post-secondary is so important to me. I know for a fact I wouldn't be where I am today had it not been for the University of Manitoba.
I've actually known Chris for quite a long time. He was one of the kids that was under my care as a guidance counselor. I would describe him as driven, courageous, and altruistic.
I'm a graduate of the University of Manitoba, getting my Bachelor of Phys Ed, and I'm currently coaching a professional volleyball team in Switzerland.
It was at the University of Manitoba where Chris Voth honed much of his athletic and leadership skills as captain of the Bison volleyball team before going on to play for Team Canada and on teams throughout Europe. In 2020, he was named assistant coach of Canada's 2024 Olympic team. Chris made history when he came out as the first openly gay national athlete in Manitoba.
My goal is really to just be that role model for someone who needs that character in their life. When I was growing up, I didn't have that role model because a lot of athletes were only coming out after their careers were over. And so that's why I really thought it was important to come out before or during my career and try and push for inclusion the whole way.
I think that was a pretty pivotal moment for him. I know it was a tough choice because he definitely knew that he probably was going to lose contracts, and he did. So it was actually a little bit damaging to his career in some ways. So it was a pretty courageous choice, I think, to do that.
Chris also founded the Pride Without Prejudice beach volleyball tournament and served as president of Out There Winnipeg.
So with Out There Winnipeg, it was a really special place for me, and I wanted to continue that organization and try and provide a similar experience for other people. Really, I just wanted to be a space where people could go socialize, be active, and where they could be themselves. Proud to Play is a book that outlines a bunch of Canadian athletes who came out during or after their careers. And for me, it was such a humbling experience because these are people that were role models for me, and now I was being included in the conversation as well. So it was so inspiring and humbling to be included in that book.
Chris is now embarking on a graduate degree at the University of Manitoba with a thesis documenting stories of professional gay athletes.
I describe dentistry as a combination of science and art because for me, in my practice, that's what I have found it to be.
Since completing the Doctor of Dental Medicine program at the University of Manitoba, Dr. Nirvani Umadat has traveled to various parts of the globe, providing volunteer dental care to people in developing countries.
We went to several small communities within the Amazon that were only accessible by boat, and we took hundreds and hundreds of pounds of mobile dental equipment.
With more than a dozen humanitarian trips in dentistry, she was able to make a difference, not only to herself, but to the lives of others, both in her deeds and as a role model.
In 2016, Nirvani co-founded Bedin, a digital platform that helps patient admissions in South America.
We developed Bedin to basically ease the flow of information between hospitals, between clinics and healthcare networks so that patients could access care within a center more easily.
She has been very curious all her life. Her wisdom to understand that when others are better and you make others better, it is also you who become better.
I'm incredibly grateful to the University of Manitoba because that's where this career and this path of mine all began, and really the door to the world opened up from there for me.
Nirvani also completed a citizen scientist astronaut training program, which eventually led her to advise the European Space Agency on how to maintain oral health in orbit.
Being a part of the program brought all of us together to learn about different aspects of space science that we were interested in, and personally mine was space physiology and the preparation of the human body for space travel and how that ultimately affects the human body.
This award, it is probably a stepping stone and support to keep going. I was quite impressed with the bundle of achievements in the short time and the simultaneous achievements. She's even a role model to me.
I'm Anne Mahon, Chancellor of the University of Manitoba and Chair of the Selection Committee for the Distinguished Alumni Awards. It's my pleasure today to sit down in conversation with the outstanding young alumni that were selected to receive this award. I'm so pleased today to be with each of you, Nirvani, Chris, and Ashley, who have all received Distinguished Alumni Awards from the University of Manitoba for being outstanding young alumni. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I want to say welcome, bonjour, and congratulations to each of you for this very special honor. So we're going to talk today and ask some questions and find out more about how you've accomplished so much so quickly in your lives. You know, you've talked about your accomplishments already, and I wonder, what is it that you want to change? What kind of change do you want to see that you're participating in, and the change that you want to see in society as you do the work that you do? Let's start with you, Nirvani.
I would say now in my career and where I am with the research I'm doing currently, what I would love to see is just really empowering and inspiring people to view their own superhumanity. So, biologically, we are these amazing, incredible beings, and we have the capability to do so much, and it's innate. Like we innately have this ability, and so I think science and research is now almost catching up to the things that are a part of who we are, and that is a really exciting place to be. And so for me, I think where I see myself now and going forward is to be a part of not only learning about that and investigating it, but also educating and inspiring other people to know the power of their bodies for themselves.
Chris, what about you? What kind of change would you like to see take place and for you to push it forward?
With my coming out, my goal was to be a role model and to inspire other people to do the same. And so now I think the change that I'm looking to do through academia, actually, I'm conducting my own research, is to make sport more inclusive. And hopefully that has a two-pronged effect. One is that current athletes feel more comfortable coming out, but then also that people who previously thought that they weren't able to play sports because of their sexuality feel like they're able to, fulfill their dreams.
Thank you. And Ashley, what about you? What kind of change would you like to see in the world?
Similarly, on the topic of inclusivity, definitely being able to see more truly inclusive spaces for diverse Indigenous peoples. There's tons of great work being done in the community in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and across Canada. And I certainly don't want to diminish that. But honestly, I feel like we still do have a long way to go in terms of really meaningfully advancing truth and reconciliation. And when I think some days where we are now and where we need to go, it's overwhelming because it is quite a ways away. But then I think back to my grandmother, who was born in 1940, and all the work that she did throughout her lifetime. And then, by the time I was born in 1990, I always knew that my purpose was to follow in the work and the footsteps and the path that she laid out for me. And my work today wouldn't be possible had it not been for her efforts. And so I remind myself of that the work I'm doing today, I might not be seeing extravagant changes, right in front of my eyes, but my children and grandchildren and their grandchildren and, the next generations, hopefully they'll be able to look back on the work that I did and make the connection and recognize that they can be change makers too.
Your answer leads right into my next question, which is for you, Ashley. It actually relates to your grandmother. I know that you were extremely close with your grandmother, your Kukum, Mary Richard, who was a very highly respected elder in Winnipeg. And I'm wondering, what do you think your grandmother's legacy was? And how does that impact you and your work today?
Yeah, my grandmother's legacy. I hear so many different perspectives from community members on how they remember her. Very fiery, passionate, someone who, she wasn't afraid to have her opinion be her opinion against the rest of the room. So I think she left behind those values in me. And although she's gone from the physical world, there are times when I definitely do channel her spirit and her energy. And the reason I've been able to persevere through so many of my own personal challenges and difficulties has been because I had to learn to trust that her spirit is within me. And that enabled me to learn to trust my own self. And so I guess, the legacy is her work and maybe the teachings that she instilled in me because I'm committed to continuing her work.
Nirvani, you volunteered in many developing countries where access to dental care isn't always readily available. You say that volunteering has been food for your soul. Tell us what you've received from that volunteering.
Yeah, I think for me, being able to volunteer and do so in some of the most remote communities all over the world, it's given me a completely different perspective on the world and on people and cultures of the world because for much of my academic and now my professional career has been very scientific, very evidence based, very clinical. I spent a lot of time in the lab, and when you travel to some of these communities where the lifestyle and the perspective on life is completely different, it opens up something within you. And so I think that me being able to be welcomed into and trusted by these communities has not only been an incredibly humbling experience for me, but I have, in some ways, I've gotten the opportunity to see the world through the eyes of people from all over. And just for me now, the way I look at life and the world and some of my goals and intentions have really been influenced and shaped by my ability to spend time in these communities and work with people from all over.
Mm. Do you have a memorable patient or a memorable experience from all of your travels? Anything come to mind? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, sure. I would say I have so many amazing memories, but one of the most memorable, like something that's coming to mind right now, was a little boy, and we were in the Amazon, so we were in the middle of the jungle, and the tribes in this area they spoke Quechua, so uh, they did not speak English, and there were only a few translators. So I was working with a little boy, and I had to take out a tooth on him. That's what we were doing for him. And before I started, he was 7, and he grabbed my arms and he just held my arms and looked at me. It was like he couldn't understand anything I was saying. And I'm sure he was very scared. You have all of these people who look different and sound different, and these sharp metal instruments all over the place. So incredibly scary experience for somebody who's unfamiliar with it. And so he grabbed my arm and just looked into my eyes, and it was so powerful. Like I felt in that moment he was connecting with me in a way that he knew how. And it was like a memory, for sure I will never forget. But in that moment I sensed just how interconnected we all are.
It's like he was looking into your soul, and you talk
It was.
about the volunteering being food for your soul, so kind of like a one of those full circle moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, your personal and professional lives are coming together with your University of Manitoba master's thesis focusing on the stories of gay and lesbian professional athletes. And you referenced it a little earlier. I'd like to hear more about that. Can you tell us why you chose this for your thesis?
Yeah, sure. So when I came out, it was at a time when actually a lot of other athletes were coming out as well. It feels just like yesterday, but apparently it was 8 years ago now, which blows my mind. But there were a lot of athletes coming out, and there were records being set at the Olympics for out athletes, for example. But there were no team sport gay male athletes that were out. And so that was a population that was quite underrepresented, especially when you think about the major North American team sports. And so despite there being a lot of out athletes, I noticed that there was still something going on in the sport culture that was preventing gay athletes from coming out on teams. And so my research is focusing just on those team sport athletes and trying to capture their experiences to share with other people. There's a lot of research, and based on my own experience as well, that the more experience people have with gay athletes and interacting and learning from them, the more they're comfortable and the better the environment is. So that's my approach to trying to make sport more inclusive.
So what difference do you hope your research will make?
Well, I'm hoping to shed light on the experiences that the athletes have, both positive and negative. Also give suggestions for sport organizations, for teammates, for coaches, anyone who is just looking for advice and to improve themselves on how to produce that culture that's more inclusive.
Well, I want to thank all of you so much for this great, engaging conversation. And on behalf of the University of Manitoba, I want to just congratulate you. We're thankful to be able to celebrate you and what you've accomplished. And we're thankful that you have received this award and honored the university with your association with us. So I too am grateful, and I want to say thank you so much for this conversation today.